Well, it has been too long, but I'm here. So, this is a topic that I really felt led to talk about because I feel like, from my experience and just by looking into the topic and researching it, not a lot of women talk about this. Not enough women talk about this. And it is a heavy topic. And the topic is miscarriage. I recently, unfortunately, had my first miscarriage after having 3 healthy pregnancies. I have a 12-year-old daughter, a 10-year-old daughter, and a going to be 7-year-old daughter. Never had any pregnancy complications, but recently had one. And so I wanted to talk about it from when we found out that we were pregnant all the way up until today, and what I'm going through now. So a few weeks ago, we had unexpectedly found out that we were expecting. And I say unexpectedly because I was on birth control. And so never had any type of, I don't know if you want to say accidents or anything happen where I've been on birth control. Each one of our daughters were born out of me going off birth control and planning the pregnancy. But we very much were excited about this baby coming. And so, I'd been a week late. And from my experience on birth control, I can pretty much time like when my period was supposed to come. And so when it was like a week late, I was like, okay, I doubt that I'm pregnant, but let me check. Maybe my body's doing something, doing its own thing and it wants to come when it wants to come. And so took a test, found out I was pregnant, took 2, and was very excited to find out that we were expecting. And I had signed up for a women's dual jujitsu tournament. And so I was like contemplating, like, do I stay in it? And the reason why I say that is because I was so early on, and I do jujitsu throughout. I've done it through out both of my last 2 pregnancies. I lift weights hard. I do everything. I do everything smart, but like pretty hard compared to what I think most people would think is like a normal level of activities. So I was like, I feel safe enough that maybe, but the more and more I thought about it, I was like, nah, I don't want to take any chances. I'm going to pull out of this duel. And so, my team ended up finding a replacement for me. And so we were preparing for this baby and, had my first appointment, scheduled to go find out our due date. And so I went in, was supposed to be measuring at 9 weeks, 2 days, and went into my appointment. And anyone who's ever had their first ultrasound to find out when their due date is, usually the technician that's checking when you're due is usually excited, like, oh, here's the fetus, here's the heartbeat, this is when you're due. And I noticed right away, first of all, that her face looked a little bit concerned. But I was like, okay, maybe that's just her face. But then as she started to kind of scan over the baby, there was no activity. And I was supposed to measure at 9 weeks, 2 days, and was measuring at 7 weeks, 3 days, which means for at least 2 weeks, the baby had already passed. And mind you, up until this point, my body had never indicated anything. I didn't have any pain. I didn't have any cramps. I didn't have any bleeding or nothing. So no indication that the baby had passed. And so we left that appointment with basically the technician saying, there's no heartbeat. So you need to go see your regular doctor to find out the next steps. And so my husband and I, being Christian, we talked about it and was like, you know what? I want a second ultrasound, and I want to pray on this. And I trust God that I know that He can do miracles. He can revive this baby. And if not, then not. But I want a second ultrasound. And so we went in that following Monday. That was a Thursday. We went in that following Monday, and they confirmed that there was no heartbeat. And so before the second ultrasound, we had talked about, how are we going to move forward if the baby had for sure passed. And so I had originally went into it saying, I just want my body to naturally pass the baby and go from there. But when we went in to the appointment after our ultrasound, they basically gave us the 3 options. And the first one was to naturally let the baby pass. But what they had said was, your body hasn't done any movement as far as indicating that the baby has passed. So it could take weeks before you miscarry. Although they don't allow you to go further than 2 weeks after you have found out that you miscarried, just to avoid any infections or any issues. So, in my head, I'm like, do I really want to continue in this for 2 weeks of knowing that my baby has passed, even though I'm still carrying? I'm going to say him because I believe it was a him. But while I'm still carrying him, but he's passed. And so and that in itself was a mental and emotional heartbreak. And then the other options were the pill, which people who want abortions take that pill, or the surgical way that they remove the fetus. And so I had talked to my husband again and was like, I don't want to continue to wait. I don't know when it can happen. We're both trash drivers. I don't want to all of a sudden miscarry while I'm on route, and that would be just kind of a disaster, where if you take the pill, they know when it's going to start. And so I said, I don't believe in abortion, but this is not an abortion. The baby's already passed. And so, and the sooner that my body can get back to normal, the sooner that we can get back to trying, because we hadn't planned for this baby, but, we were excited for the baby. And after all the excitement with the family, we want a baby now, we want to plan for one now, because we already had in our hearts that we were going to have one. And so went the pill route. And one thing I wish I would have known is what happens after you miscarry the baby. And that was one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to do this episode, was because this is my opinion. But I do feel like there's facts behind it, is because we live in a society where women fight to be able to what a lot of people consider 12 weeks and earlier as just a clump of cells. They fight to be able to abort their babies. And because of that, there isn't conversation about what happens after you actually miscarry. Your body releases the baby. There's not enough conversation about what goes on after that actually happens. So I took the pill on a Wednesday, the Wednesday after that Monday's appointment. And the bleeding started within 2 to 3 hours, which is what they say. But I didn't actually release the baby until that Thursday night, which happened to be our second daughter's 10th birthday. And for me, that is what has been the hardest part about this whole thing, is how we had to discard our baby, and what people would consider just clump of cells. Is I ended up, going to the bathroom, and as you're going through this miscarriage, there are like blood clots and stuff that release, and I could tell that this was different. And so I ended up looking and seeing that it was our baby. You could very much tell. You could see what, it looks like a tadpole a little bit, but you can see where the arms are starting. You could see where the mouth was starting to see, where the eyes were starting to develop, and didn't know what to do with it after that. We did end up flushing it. I ended up asking my husband to do it, which was hard for him. And I told him, I was like, I need to go outside. I don't even want to hear the toilet flush. I don't want to hear it. But, of course, before that, I didn't think about that part of the, process. Yeah. So I needed to go outside. I didn't want to hear the flushing. I didn't want to hear any of that. And, it wasn't until like a day or two later that I was like, they don't tell you about this part. You know, they send you home. They give you the ways to get rid of the baby or to just, you know, to get it out of your body, but they don't tell you the process after. They don't tell you what that feels like, afterwards, or that you know, would possibly even see it. And so, and for someone who wanted their baby, it's not just flushing down a clump of cells. And I ended up finding, or doing some research of like, you know, if there's not a company out there that helps women at like during this process, I want to make a company, and I still want to make a company, that helps women after this. But I ended up researching and found an organization that's called Heaven's Gains Ministries, where they actually have like kits, miscarriage kits that will help you preserve the baby, that you can put it. They have literally like this small of little coffins, or like a little like urn type thing that you can put your fetus, your baby into, to be able to bury it or have some type of way to honor the life that you lost in a better way than having to throw it away, or what we did was flush it. And that has been the most painful part for me to cope with. And I ended up buying this ring, just off of Amazon. It's little feet and a heart and some wings on the side. I don't know if you can really see that, but just for me, as a symbol of, to remember him, we decided to name him Heaven, because that's where we believe he is now. But it's just a conversation that needs to be had more. And I want women to know that when this happens, more than likely, there was nothing that you could have done. And that's something that I also had a process of, what could I have done differently? I did everything the same that I did with my first 3 pregnancies. I hadn't eaten anything that would have caused this. Did I exercise wrong? Nothing. Like, there was nothing. And even the doctors confirmed, like, this is just a genetic development thing that happens in more women than we talk about, that within the first 12 weeks, it just happens. And it's not anything that they can really explain. It's not something that the woman does. It just happens. And I wish we had more conversation about this so that women wouldn't feel so ashamed or feel by themselves. But my biggest part that I wanted to talk about was, if you know you're going to go through a miscarriage and you want a better way to honor the life that you lost, there is an organization out there. There might be more than one. I only found the one that was called Heaven's Gain, that helps with that process afterwards, to give you a better way to honor your baby, that I wish I would have known before it happened to us. And I prayed about it, and I realized that you can only make decisions based off the information that you know. And I did not know about this organization, and I didn't even think to look into it until after the process. So I can't hold that against me, or against myself, or even my husband, or anybody, because of that. And I had my appointment today to basically examine and make sure that everything had gone, and to check my levels to make sure that my pregnancy hormones are going down, so that my body can return back to normal, so that we can try again. But I had mentioned, that was the hardest part for me, is that you guys didn't tell me that there was something that I could have did afterwards. And, one of the comments that was made was most people don't even see. It's just like, it just looks like a clump that comes out. They don't usually see it. But also they didn't even know that there was an organization out there. And I'm like, the medical field should know that. And I think, again, it's because they're just there to help you either, have the baby or miscarry the baby or abort the baby. There's no process after. I don't even think they even think about that, again, because we're in a society that doesn't even recognize, most people don't even recognize that the fetus as a baby yet. It's just a clump of cells, whether it has a heartbeat or not. And so I think that is the fault of our society when it comes to this situation, is that it's not considered a life loss. And for believers like myself, and even people who aren't Christian that don't believe that false idea that it isn't a life, need to be able to have the opportunity to honor the life that they've lost and felt and know that they lost and believe that they lost. They need a way to process that and to be able to honor their lost baby, the life of their baby, in a better way than being sent home to just miscarriage it and not have any options of, now that I have, what do I do with it? So yeah. I have had my on and off days, on and off moments. There's times where I can tell people what happened without crying, and the next minute I can tell another person and start crying. There's moments where I see, pregnant women and think that was supposed to be me in a few months and tear up. And then there's other times where I'm like, I look forward to when I'm able to have that in a few months, when I can try again. There's times where I, think about how far along I would have been. There's times where, days are just easier than others, and times are easier than others, and other times where I just cry. I'm not mad at God. I did ask the question why, because that's just a human response of, why did you give me this excitement and then snatch it? It's not like we planned it. I didn't go looking for this excitement. It just was given to me and then snatched. And why? What was the purpose? And what lesson do I need to learn from this? I don't feel the lesson that I'm supposed to be learning was worth it. In the moment, that's how you feel. It's like, what lesson could be worth this pain, worth this grief. But I will say that I was able to hop back on my my jujitsu team, because I had pulled out. We had a 5 women's dual team that we had put together at my gym, my jujitsu gym, and I had pulled out, obviously finding out that I was pregnant. And then because of the miscarriage happened, there was enough time that one of my replacements ended up getting hurt. So they brought me back in. And thankfully enough, I was able to use that competition as an outlet for my grief. I turned my grief into aggression, and we ended up winning. I used that competition, honestly, to just release that grief in a physical way. I had 2 matches. I won my first match by guillotine, 50 seconds. And then the second match was a draw against a girl that was 100 pounds bigger than me. But, and even then, when I was there at the competition, it was like a joy to be there, to be able to compete, because I love competing. But then there's also this heaviness of like, I wasn't supposed to be able to compete. I was supposed to be growing this life that we were so excited to come in January of 2027. And now I'm here, competing, and there's no baby. And so I know this is there will always be a little part of me that hurts for heaven, which is what we call them. But at the same time, I know where he is. He's with Jesus, and that's what comforts me. It's my faith, and the Holy Spirit definitely comforts me. My family helps me, my husband, my kids, and then just the excitement of being able to try again when we can. But I'm hoping that this episode helps women talk more about it, maybe can relate to the emotions that I felt, and to know that there is an organization out there for if it hasn't happened and it does happen to you, or if you've already experienced it and it happens again, because some people have multiple miscarriages. Again, this was my first, and I'm praying that it's my only. I pray I never have to experience this grief again. But I hope that this helps somebody. So with that, I leave you with this. Remember to pray without ceasing, nurture your family, and train like a war machine.